Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pokemon Legends Arceus. We're exploring a new region today called the Coronet Highlands. So this is our mountainous region for the game. Huzzah!
Huzzah.
This area is fine, like gameplay wise, but I despise Mount Coronet with a fiery passion.
Yeah, I was gonna say anything that reminds me of Mount Coronet is not a good thing.
Why
but,
is there
it makes
why is
sense.
there Greek architecture in the Hisui region?
Don't think about
Shut
it.
up, Lewis.
Listen.
Look, I'm just
Jesus Christ, just look at the funny little fucking animals, would you?
Listen, we'll get our Greek region once we know that Masuda went on a vacation in Greece. All right, they just wanted to scratch that itch for a little while. It'll be fine.
I'm just like why Greek? Isn't there some, Japanese thing for this Japanese region that would serve the same purpose?
I don't know, man. I love when you go back in time and you have even ancienter ruins from then even the back in time stuff. It's crazy.
It's pretty soon we're gonna go so far back that we hit the Star Forge and technology just loops back around. It's kind of funky because like they're sort of bringing like Knights of the Old Republic back into the Star Wars universe, right? And apart from the droids being kind of hunker junker, the Knights of the Old Republic stuff doesn't really differ all that much from the modern Star Wars stuff. But then in the High Republic era, they're still figuring out hyperspace travel, and I'm like, what happened there? How does that work?
Okay, so this is something that's been bothering me for a bit, and I don't remember if we had this conversation, but fuck it, we're gonna have it anyway. This game's ugly. I need to say it. The graphics in this game are bad.
Well, I mean, you're not saying anything that hasn't already been said a million times.
I know,
though,
but
like, on
it's
the game's release.
My question is that this game, it's. I don't know if I would go far to say as this is unacceptable as a AAA product, but it's getting pretty damn close. Where this looks straight up worse than some early PS3 games,
The
early 360 games.
The resolution and a lot of the texture work does look pretty bad.
There's also the huge pop-in and the generally
Yes.
stilted animations.
Yeah.
As well.
That having been said, and the paper mache tree back there isn't looking all that great.
It's waving in the wind.
But like the general art style of the game, I quite like. If the game,
I like the art style. But
run the game in an emulator at a higher resolution and with less pop-in, and you've already solved like 90% of the game's graphical problems. The other problems are just like the textures are a bit too muddy.
Yeah, I would say like even the texture problems are a pretty big thing. Like the animations as well. Like look at what we're looking at right now. There are PS2 games with better facial and character animations than this, and the blah 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 blah, kind of talking, no voice acting.
Yeah.
At what point does the presentation become distracting to you guys, I guess is my question, because I would go as far to say something like the HD ports of Okami definitely look better than this.
Well, the thing is, like, I play such a wide range of RPGs with such a wide range of presentation styles that it doesn't really faze me when a game hits below or above a certain bar anymore. Like, I just went from Baldur's Gate 3 to Divinity Original Sin 1 and back again. And that's rough. That's as a transition, because
but there's a difference between going back to an old game and something that's brand new.
Divinity Original Sin is not that old. It's just lower budget.
Hold on, when did it come out? Original Sin. Were you playing the first one or two?
The first one, but the Divinity Original Sin games are part of like the modern CRPG renaissance. So.
That game came out in 2015, Lewis. That's almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's the same age as my car. What's your point?
8 years ago. I mean, it's still 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's almost 10. That's what almost means.
But like, that doesn't really change much because games from that era could have better presentation too.
I mean, I would. That again. That's fair. You always have to. You always have to keep things relative.
To give you some context, Divinity Original Sin 1 is the kind of game where the camera is kept zoomed out and every NPC of a particular type, like, say, all the sailors at the docks in the first town, all have variations on the same 3 lines of dialogue. Now, to be fair, I think this was an enhanced edition add-on. They had 4 different voice actors voice those same 3 lines of dialogue, so you at least had some variety. But, it wasn't like the camera drawing in close to give you a look at the character's face as they talked, which, I might add, is something that Western RPGs have been doing since the Xbox 360 era. So, yeah.
I look at this game in particular. Its graphical issues are very different than Scarlet and Violet's. They both have graphical issues, but they're different ones. I think the only thing that they really share in common is the bad draw distance and the poor texture quality. But I guess my question, just to start with, is like...
And the pop-in.
Yeah.
So much
okay, so maybe they're more similar than I thought, but they have some different issues. My question is more, how bad does it have to get, even when we're, trying to give things the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, this is an N64 game or whatever, before it distracts you from enjoying the whole experience?
I think the thing is that on a case-by-case basis, you can tell which issues are a matter of, like, budget and time, and which issues are just, like, the developer not being given the resources they need or the time they need to make the most of the hardware they're using. And here in... Oh, wait. Did I just say the same thing in 2 ways? You get what I mean. Which one?
Yes, you
which
did.
ones are, like, a deliberate... Which ones are deliberate corner cut, and which ones are the developer and publisher not being able to go above a certain threshold? Oh, hi, Unknown.
Well, that's just my big problem with Pokemon in general, is that they absolutely...
could go further. They just don't. I want to say they choose not to, but the decision makers probably aren't the same people making the games.
Well, that's the reason being is that if Pokemon Arceus looked as good, what would you say is the best looking, like, open-ish Switch game off the top of your head?
Switch game?
Yeah. Because we can't expect this to look like Final Fantasy 16.
Look. Talking of games that were built specifically for the Switch and not ported over, it would definitely be the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But, like, even those have their graphical issues. They just present themselves in such a way that when they do have graphical issues, you can tell it's the hardware straining itself and not the developers being lazy.
Yeah, because it's not like this game struggles to run at any point.
It's like when the frame rate tanks a bit in Kakariko Village, it's because Kakariko Village is so goddamn beautiful. It's not because the engine just was poorly optimized.
So I often compare games to Dragon Quest XI, which is a very good looking game and also runs on Switch. That's older, granted, but I would say it definitely looks better than this.
Dragon Quest XI is a bit of a weird case because they downgraded the textures in the so-called definitive edition, even on the more powerful consoles. That's
true, and that's a discussion worth having. But let's just, if we compare just to keep things simple, I would say Switch DQ11 in this game, DQ11 definitely looks better by a significant margin.
Yeah.
The point being, though, if Pokemon Legends Arceus looked as good as DQ11 Switch, would it translate to that many more extra copies sold? Not enough to be worth the effort, I think, which is why companies don't do it, and that's very disappointing.
That's such a bass backwards mentality, though, because it's such a short-sighted one.
I don't get me wrong, I agree with you, but that's just what's going on.
People who get who get in their heads who get into their heads an association between a brand and quality will buy more of that brand going forward, you know, because a lot of each game's sales are driven by the impressions left behind by the previous game. That's why Devil May Cry 2 fucking sold a bajillion copies, and Devil May Cry 3 had a bit of trouble selling at first, because Devil May Cry 2 was the game that came before it. But, like...
And that game was following Devil May Cry 1, which was already a modest hit.
Yeah.
As opposed to DMC3 following DMC2, which
DMC4 sold a lot because DMC3 came before it, you know? It's a cycle that sort of goes back and forth. Devil May Cry is kind of a go-to example for the effect that good and bad entries can have on the following game. But, like, one of the things about Pokemon, sales-wise, is that the people who buy it are most often going to be the longtime Pokemon fans who buy it for the Pokemon. But they could be selling it to those people and a whole bunch of other gamers in general who just see it as a high-quality product. So they would be, so that the increase in quality would translate into more sales. A lot more sales, in fact. You know?
That would be the hope.
I think it's worth pointing out that turn-based JRPG fans are not eating very well in the present climate, and Pokemon could fill that niche alongside its current niche, without either of them conflicting with each other.
What are the big turn-based games that have come out recently? There's Octopath 1 and 2. I guess Bravely Default 2.
Bravely Default's pretty old at this point,
Bravely
though.
Default 2
so
came out
I wouldn't...
like 2-3 years ago.
Look, okay.
Wait, did
Yeah.
it?
Look, the quote-unquote big turn-based RPG market is shrinking by the year. Like, even the Trails series, which has been a turn-based RPG series for a long time, has shifted on over to action because Falcom is homogenizing their design philosophy to an annoying
I was
degree.
thinking Bravely second.
Bravely second?
Yeah, how could you, John, how dare you get Bravely Second and Bravely Default 2 confused? Oh, man. Next, you're going to tell me that new Super Mario Brothers 2 is the second game in the series.
I'll turn in my badge and gun tomorrow.
Like we'll probably have... there's Shin Megami Tensei, there's Soul Hackers, and whatever the next Persona game is. There's...
Well, I don't know. They'll make Persona 6 eventually when, you know, they stop making Persona 5 spin-offs.
Because the Trails series is lagging behind in the West because of translation delays, we still have a Trails game or two left that is turn-based. Before Kuro turns everything into an East game. Let's see. Can you tell I'm bitter? I'm a little bitter.
Yeah, I mean...
that is good-ass turn-based system, and you're going action. Great.
I guess the thing that what you're bringing up to me is that there's actually very few new turn-based games coming out.
Yeah.
They're all entries in existing franchises. Like SMT's been around for forever.
I mean, the biggest new turn-based game that I can think of is BG3, and that's Western CRPG, so it's a different type of turn-based and a different type of game flow, so it's not the same market.
I mean, I guess there's Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default, but those are Final Fantasy games in a trench coat. So
they're also like distinctly low-budget productions that stylize rather than going whole hog like, say, Final Fantasy 16 would. We haven't had a Lost Odyssey in a while.
Was Lost Odyssey good?
Yeah. Well, from what I played.
Was that the Xbox? Xbox game, right?
The game is the game is like 6 million discs, and my Xbox 360 has a faulty disc
There hasn't
tray.
been a Lost Odyssey game in a while. Yeah, nobody liked the other one. Maybe that's why there hasn't been one in a while.
I want to play it, but my Xbox 360's disc tray has a habit of never ejecting, so I need a new Xbox 360 or something.
I think it's easy just to say that this is all John's fault for not liking Blue Dragon.
Absolutely. No, you want to know why? Because Blue Dragon's a boring piece of shit.
Well, yeah.
Don't you bring your logic and true facts into this, sir.
But like my point is we haven't had a turn-based game that's like high production value in a while. That's partly why people are so sore with Square Enix. People get on Final Fantasy fans' case for not being able to accept turn-based, but like they were the last bastion for high production value turn-based JRPGs, and they've decided that because their elevated spin-off did relatively well, they'd continue to be action-based. Okay, yeah.
I think the frustrating thing for me is that with kind of the decline in handheld styled games, we've seen less and less smaller scale production turn-based games. You know, you don't see, because there's no handhelds really anymore. You saw a lot of turn-based RPGs on handhelds. And
yeah, but not a high production value.
I'm willing to think they're
But at
still
least they
there.
were still
It's just
there.
that folks don't know. Hold on. I would argue that it's still there. Is that folks don't know where to look or aren't looking for them.
I mean, there certainly are indie
Like
games
we were
coming out.
talking. We were talking earlier about like how like Square was like the last bastion of turn-based RPGs.
I said
worth a
high
damn.
production value, which
Right.
implies high marketing value as well. You don't need to find out or look for the high production value turn-based RPGs. They find you.
But I think people are only. I think a factor to consider though is that until something is like blatantly shown into their face, a lot of folks will just sit with their hands under their ass and not realize they're sitting on a treasure trove of that kind of shit, but they don't know it's there because they don't look for it.
Well, yeah. And there are some damn good, actually, turn-based RPGs in the indie scene. In fact, I can't think of their titles off the top of my head, but I saw at least 2 of them recently that were pixel art games.
And I would argue, like, shouldn't that be enough? Like, why does it have to be from one particular publisher?
Well, it doesn't.
Because at that point, you're not a fan of the genre, you're a fan of the company.
It doesn't have to be from one particular publisher. It's just that one particular publisher is the only one doing it at the level. It was the only one doing it at the level that they want. Not everyone wants to play a turn-based RPG about fucking Dragon Ball characters, okay? And, you know...
Hold on, hear him out. Maybe there's some layer to it.
Look. I like Akira Toriyama when he's not writing Dragon Ball Super. But... Because, like, I feel like he's just going through the zombie motions when he does that now. But like, there's a certain tone to his Dragon Quest characters that is very happy-go-lucky. And it's very hard for a lot of people, and myself included, to get into the feeling of fantasy adventure when everything is cartoony and happy-go-lucky.
Even as the resident Dragon Quest fanboy in the call, I agree with Lewis in the fact that a lot of people do not expect Dragon Quest to go as dark as it often can, and it's jarring for some people when, you know, you get to a part in Dragon Quest V where, you know, you're fucking thrown into slavery.
Oh, yeah.
At hour 5 in the game, and you're like, what the fuck is... I thought that this was the silly slime pun game.
The Dragon Quest games are fantastic, but like, and this problem extends past Dragon Quest. It also goes to all those pixel art games I mentioned. It's fantastic to play a nice pixel art game, but it also puts you in a certain mood. And
yeah, and there should be options for people. You know, again, like Dragon Quest can't be the only turn-based RPG. You know, just like how, you know, if you want to play a platformer, you shouldn't just have like Mario and Sonic and that's it. You know,
there are also tonal balance problems with a lot of the turn-based RPGs that come out, in the sense that they feel a need, because they're so niche, they feel a need to lean into popular tropes a lot of the time, which is why even among the Trails, the Legend of Heroes Trails series fans, you'll see people making fun of Reen Schwarzer for basically being a light novel harem protagonist. He gets better, but it takes a while for him to get there. And like during that while, you're going through a lot of moments that seem custom tailored to irritate anyone who is not totally on board with the tropes that they're using. For example, oh no, I can't beat this boss enemy that I just clearly beat in 2 moves because they're too shonen powerful and they have flashy flash powers. I guess we'd better run away and fight them again later. Again, for the 15th fucking time in this one game.
again,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that's a big RPG. Final Fantasy IV, as good of a game as it is a big, a big not victim, but culprit of this, where it's just like, oh man, what the fuck is his name? Darth Vader. Golbez. Oh, he's so powerful. We can't defeat him. We literally just kicked his minion's ass into next week, and you're telling me that guy in dark armor we can't handle 5-on-1? Please.
I mean, we can't. That's the thing. Is like when he finally fights us, he kicks our ass.
The only time that a game I've played has done that in a satisfying way has been Wild Arms Alter Code F, the remake of the first game, where there were a number of fights against the main villains, and you couldn't defeat them because, well, plot. But the game did something mildly clever with that, where at the end of the cutscene battle, you'd get experience points from that battle based on the amount of damage that you dealt to the enemy. So even though you couldn't beat them, you were still motivated to perform as good as you could to get as much experience points from the encounter as you could. And you could gain a lot of levels if you were really good at it, you know?
Point to Chrono Trigger here. I'm not like the world's biggest Chrono Trigger fan, but I do appreciate that if you do jump into the bucket and fight Lavos at the beginning of the game, you can technically win, and there is a ending specifically for that. So
there are multiple endings specifically for different points in the game when you defeat him. It's great.
So it's like, at the very least, like I do appreciate that element about the game, even if I'm not as high on other parts of it.